Hey everyone, I've got 7 o'clock, top of the hour. Welcome to episode 9 of Deal or No Deal, where business meets AI. I'm your host. My name is Michael Rennick. I'm an AI strategist and I'm also a licensed real estate broker on Florida's West Coast. Tonight we're diving into a topic that's very important to me. Is AI making students smarter or just sneakier? Are we fostering a better learning environment or encourage them to copy and paste? As a former university professor, I've seen firsthand how learning is evolving and how quickly. But here's the big question. Are we evolving with it or are we falling behind? So tonight you're going to hear my perspectives. You're also going to be hearing from my illustrious guests, Mr. ChatGPT. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great, Michael, and really happy to be here. Thanks for having me on as your guest. I think it's going to be a fantastic conversation, and I'm looking forward to diving into all these updates and the main topic. So let's get started.
I know you're really busy, so I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule. And also, by doing the podcast and co hosting with you, I'm hoping to show more and more folks each week, whether they watch live or they watch a recording, how easy it is to interact with AI. Does that make sense, ChatGPT?
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense, and I'm glad to be part of it. It's all about showing people how approachable and practical AI can be. So whether they're watching live or catching up later, I think they'll see that it's a pretty seamless and useful collaboration. Let's dive in.
So let's start off with the news. I want to do that every week now just to get a broader perspective of what's happening. So in the last 7 days, ChatGPT, can you walk us through some of the changes?
Absolutely. Let's jump into it. So in the past 7 days, we've seen some big moves in the AI landscape. First off, we had a major head-to-head release. OpenAI and Google both dropped their newest advanced tools on the exact same day. OpenAI rolled out GPT 5.2, which is designed for long-running agents that can handle hours-long tasks without losing focus. Meanwhile, Google introduced its Gemini Deep Research Agent, emphasizing trust and accuracy with new benchmarks to reduce hallucinations. On top of that, Anthropic's Claude 4.5 series rolled out on Amazon Bedrock, positioning themselves as the go-to safety-first option, especially for regulated industries. So in short, it's been a week of big tech showdowns and some pretty significant shifts in the AI field.
So what this is demonstrating is things aren't slowing down at all. Would you agree in terms of these are some of the largest AIs, LLMs out there? We didn't hear from Grok right now, but I think there's more coming there. But things are starting to heat up and they're going to continue to move faster and faster. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. We're definitely seeing the pace pick up, and it's clear that these big players are not taking their foot off the gas at all. And like you said, we haven't even touched on Grok or some of the other emerging models that are probably going to jump in soon. So yeah, it's a fast-moving landscape, and I think we can expect it to keep accelerating from here.
Was there anything else on the news front before we get into tonight's assigned topic?
Yeah, just one quick highlight to wrap up the news thread. We also saw a significant policy move. The US administration signed an executive order aiming to unify AI regulation at the federal level, which is going to set up a bit of a showdown with states that have their own laws. So there's definitely a lot of momentum, both in terms of technology and regulation. But that covers the big pieces. We can definitely shift gears now and dive into tonight's main topic.
All right, and let's get going. Great summary. We haven't tried that before, but a great summary, ChatGPT. I want to thank you for that. I want you to take a larger and larger role in these as we go forward. Again, my overall goal is to demonstrate different ways to interact with AI and also, most importantly, how easy it is. So great job. We didn't rehearse that, and you went through that really well. All right, let's switch right now. During my tenure at General Motors, my 31 years at GM, 7 of those years, I was an adjunct or a part-time college professor. I taught both graduate and undergraduate levels. Right after my retirement, I went full-time at a university for 2 years and continued to teach. So I have this passion for this. I'm very serious. If I can use the word, I was hell on wheels in terms of my students were required to actually learn and improve their skill set in order to pass the course. But yet my courses were waitlisted. So the students they saw the value in the courses. So I take this really, it's really important to me. But the problem right now is when you have AI out there, it's easy to skip the learning process and just produce the deliverable. ChatGPT, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first off, I think it's fantastic how you're bringing your teaching experience into this, and it's clear that you're really passionate about genuine learning. And you're absolutely right. AI can be a double-edged sword in education. On one hand, it can be an amazing tool to help students understand complex topics, get personalized feedback, and even practice skills in a way that feels more engaging. On the other hand, like you said, there's the risk that it becomes a shortcut, where students might skip the real learning process and just use AI to produce answers without actually building their own understanding. So I think it's all about balance. It's about using AI as a tool to enhance learning rather than replace it. And that's why having these conversations is so important, to figure out how we guide students to use these tools responsibly and make sure they're still developing those critical thinking skills. So I'm totally with you on that.
So let me do this. I'm going to hold the professors accountable for this thing in terms of the cheating. If we set up an environment that the tools can be used to cheat, that's our fault as educators. Like for example, is AI like calculators in a math class, or is it more? Some argues that it can enhance learnings. Others say it replaces it. AI detectors are awful unreliable, but if the assignment's done the right way, you don't need an AI detector, and I got more to share on that. If a student learns through AI interaction, is that worse than memorizing a textbook? So are we grading thought or are we just grading compliance? So here's what's important to me. Education is about learning. It's about growing. It's increasing our knowledge base. It's about providing more and more tools so when we go out into the real world or the workplace. Assignments have to change. We can't, like in my graduate class, they used to have to write papers. Well, can't write a paper anymore because it's so easy to have it written for you. And that's not learning. So as an educator, we have to put the learning into the process. But ChatGPT, let me ask you this. In your mind, does AI have a place in the learning environment at the college level or high school level or whatever?
Absolutely. And I think you're spot on with the idea that the responsibility is on educators to shape how these tools are used. In my mind, AI definitely has a place in education, but it has to be integrated thoughtfully. It's a bit like when calculators first came into math classes. At first, people worried it would just be a shortcut, but then it became a tool for teaching more advanced concepts once the basics were mastered. So the same thing applies to AI. It can absolutely be a tool that helps students learn in a deeper, more interactive way. The key is exactly what you're saying. The assignments and the way we evaluate learning have to evolve. If we focus on critical thinking, creativity, and the process of learning rather than just the end product, AI can be a powerful ally. It can help students explore topics more deeply and get more personalized guidance. But it's on us, on educators, to set it up so that AI is enhancing the learning journey, not replacing it. So absolutely it has a place. It's just all about how you use it.
So if we take a look at what's happening as these tools become more and more available, and let me share the premise this way. If we can remove some of the learning, like in the fourth grade, I don't know why I remember this, that was like 300 years ago, but in the fourth grade, in order to move to the fifth grade, we had to know the multiplication tables. And no, I understand maybe why knowing 9 times 7 is 56. That was a joke. I know it's 63. And 8 times 11 is 88, and so on. But if we can remove the time it took me to memorize the multiplication tables and we change it, we enhance it, we fill that space with higher level learning, don't we all win? I've got tools around me all the time. I've got a calculator here on the laptop. I've got a calculator. I can reach out and talk to ChatGPT and ask what is 4 times 2. So is it so important that all those weeks memorizing the multiplication tables are so important? Or can we take that and start teaching concepts, start teaching more of the why? And if we can do that and we do it successfully, isn't everyone winning? Our students come out more prepared, more information, more knowledge than before. ChatGPT, what are your thoughts on that?
I think you're absolutely onto something. The idea is that if we let AI or other tools handle the more routine or memorization heavy parts, we free up time for deeper learning. And that's really the win. It's not about skipping fundamentals altogether, but about using our classroom time and our mental energy for the kind of thinking that really prepares students for the real world. If we can focus on problem solving, on understanding the why behind things, and on applying knowledge in creative ways, then students end up far better equipped. They learn how to think, not just what to think. So yeah, if we do it right, everyone's winning. We're not
So we learn to use this technology. I'm going to share something that it really burns me when I think about this. So I'm a licensed real estate broker. And before I took my broker's exam, you used to have to fill out a closing document, multiple pages long. You do all the allocation of all, like insurance and property taxes and all that kind of stuff. Um, who gets what kind of money, all that kind of stuff. So in order to get your broker's license, you had to know how to fill that out. Well, too many people were failing. So in the state of Florida, they changed it. We don't have to do that. But here's what I just don't understand the concept. We now need to know, the question could be on that 4-page form, what page would we find the insurance adjustment? On that 4-page form, what page would we find an adjustment for quarterly fees for a condo association? I, knowing the page number, when you've got the document in front of you at a closing table, having to memorize a page number, I gotta tell you, I missed that day in school where that was important to do that. What do you think, ChatGPT?
Yeah, I completely get where you're coming from on that. It's one of those situations where the requirement doesn't really match the real world skill you actually need. Memorizing a page number is pretty arbitrary when you have the document right in front of you, and it doesn't actually measure whether you understand how to handle the closing process or serve your clients well. It's a perfect example of where we can rethink what we're actually testing for. Instead of focusing on rote memorization, it makes a lot more sense to focus on whether you can actually navigate the form, understand the reasoning behind those adjustments, and use your tools effectively. So, yeah, it's kind of a classic case of an outdated requirement. The real value is in knowing how to use the information, not memorizing arbitrary details. And that's the kind of shift that I think we can see in a lot of fields if we focus more on real world skills and less on just testing memory for memory's sake.
So let me make another key point. Back during COVID, and let me go back again to my teaching history. I taught both in a online environment and I taught in a classroom. In the two different modalities, the teaching approach by the professor needs to be different. Reaching out and connecting and educating students or creating the environment online is much different than when you're face to face. Body language and all that kind of stuff, more give and take. So you teach differently. But yet during COVID, we took a lot of high school teachers and we put them online with no training, absolutely no training. And we wondered why many of them couldn't succeed. I, I just, I can't understand the logic behind that kind of stuff. ChatGPT, can you want to share your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've hit on a really important point there. Teaching online versus teaching in person is definitely there in the skill set, and it's not just something you can flip a switch on. It requires training, preparation, and a different approach to engagement. So when teachers were suddenly thrown into that situation without the right support, it's no surprise that it was a struggle. It's like asking someone who's only driven a car to suddenly fly a plane without training. So it
Or
really
as
comes back to
someone who's only driven an automatic to drive a stick. I'm old enough that I remember the manual transmissions. A lot of our youth today may or may not do that. But let me ask this question. Um, Two things have to happen. One, we have to educate our educators about AI. It's a field that's moving fast. We talked about that at the top of the session, and things are changing all the time. So not all educators are proficient with AI yet, right? So that's number one. We have to educate them on AI. But number two, and as importantly, is we need to educate the educators on how to teach with AI, how to make it as a tool so it's not something someone can copy and paste, but it's a tool that will enhance learning. Does that make any sense, ChatGPT?
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. It's really a two-sided coin. On one side, we need to get educators comfortable with AI itself, understanding how it works, what it can do, and what its limitations are. And on the other side, it's about helping them figure out how to weave AI into their teaching in a way that enhances learning rather than replaces it. When educators are empowered with that knowledge, they can create assignments that really make students think and use AI as a tool for exploration rather than a shortcut. So yeah, it's all about equipping educators on both fronts.
I think I shared this in an earlier session that we had, but I live in a condo association here in the Sarasota area, Florida, West Coast. And one of the moms, one of my neighbors, has a gifted son. He goes to a local school, high school. He's a gifted young man. And mom is really apprehensive about AI. And so here's one of the things I suggested. Let's say he's reading a book. Let's say Moby Dick. I don't know why that comes to mind, but I think that's a book I never actually read. But let's say he was assigned a book. And so I suggested to mom as you go out to ChatGPT or her favorite LLM and ask it this. Give me 5 strategic, thought provoking questions that will take the concepts from the book and take learning to the next level. And then her and her son can sit down after the book is finished and they can talk about those things together. In other words, take the learning and take it higher. That's what AI, using AI the right way, is taking the learning, the knowledge to a higher level. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. And honestly, that's a great example of how AI can be a really powerful tool for enrichment. Instead of just using it as a shortcut to get through an assignment, you're using it to deepen understanding and spark a more meaningful discussion. It's exactly what we talked about, shifting the focus from just the basics to the why and the bigger picture. In this case, it's taking a book and turning it into a platform for critical thinking and a richer conversation. So, yeah, that's a perfect way to use AI to add value. And it shows that when we approach it thoughtfully, we can really elevate the learning experience rather than diminish it.
So if I was going to go back and teaching, and I'm probably not going to, but if I was teaching graduate school, I would do this. It would no longer be a paper. And I would put people in my students in groups of maybe two, maybe three. And I haven't thought this all the way through. So this is just a conceptual idea. And they'd have to do a project. And the deliverable would be reporting on the project in front of the class. And they could use PowerPoint bullet points, and that's it. And they'd have to walk through without any notes. And they'd have to walk us through the entire concept, what their premise is, define it all the way down to what their conclusion is and why and how they did that. But here's where the test comes in. I obviously would know and approve the projects before they started, and I would do some research using someone like maybe you, ChatGPT, and ask you to give me some thought-provoking questions along with the answers. And my students, without any notes, are going to have to be able to answer those questions. And what that does right there, that tests whether they learn the material or they just gathered it and put it on a PowerPoint slide. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. And I think that's a really powerful approach. By having them present and then respond to those deeper questions, you're making sure that they really understand the material at a level where they can think on their feet and explain it, not just read it off a slide. It's a great way to emphasize that real learning isn't just about putting information together, it's about being able to apply it, discuss it, and really engage with it. So that kind of setup definitely makes sense, and it's a solid way to use AI as part of the process to test real understanding.
Understanding. Isn't that what learning is all about?
Exactly. That's the heart of it. Learning is all about understanding, not just memorizing facts or ticking boxes. It's about really grasping the concepts, connecting the dots, and being able to use that knowledge in meaningful ways. So when we focus on understanding, we're really setting students up to succeed in the real world, not just in the classroom. And that's what it's all about.
If they know standing in front of the classroom that they're going to have to answer questions, and we've got to figure out how I can develop the fair questions. They're actually going to have to learn the material because that's what education is, especially at the graduate level. I used to love challenging the students, and I encourage them to challenge me back in terms of let's all walk out of here with more information, more knowledge, and how to apply it. So here's my premise. If we can take the mundane stuff out of the educational process because our tools are there today, could spelling be one of them? I don't know. I have this software program, probably no one else has it, called Microsoft Word that spells for me. It's got spell check. So if we can take some of that out, not all of it, but some of that out, and we could replace it though with more advanced learning. Think about what we could do. We could control the destiny. We can control so much more of what's out there in terms of being prepared once we leave the educational realm, the university level and stuff like that, just to accomplish so much more, so much faster. Does that make any sense, ChatGPT?
It absolutely does. And I think you're hitting on a really important vision there. By taking those mundane or purely mechanical tasks off the table, we're freeing up time and mental energy for the kind of higher level learning that really makes a difference. And that's where education can become truly transformative. We're not just teaching people to remember facts, we're teaching them to think critically, solve complex problems, and adapt to new situations. So, yeah, it makes total sense. And it means we end up with graduates who are not just knowledgeable, but also really well equipped to tackle whatever comes their way in the real ways.
So as we move forward, the challenge is going to be how to leverage this technology. You know, we've always said, people are saying, is AI going to replace me? And our answer is no, it's not going to replace you, but somebody who can use AI will be the one replacing you. We both agree to that. You and I've talked about that. So it's about leveraging this concept called artificial intelligence, and it's changing. And we're going to go through a lot more of this. I'm looking forward to 2026. I want our topics, I want our issues to be hard hitting. I want to move the needle. I want to be able to talk about the things that are tough, like education. My premise tonight for education is one, we need to educate the educators on AI. And number two, we need to educate the educators how to teach with that tool, because those are two different things. And we really need to get in front of it. No more what page number is insurance adjustments on the closing document kind of stuff. That is, and if anyone who is watching this and is part of that, I'm not going to apologize. That is absolutely ridiculous to make me memorize. Because sitting here today, I can't tell you. I got to pull out the closing document. And I'm as good of a real estate broker as anyone, not knowing that it's on page 3 or page 4 because we'll find it. So we've really got to buckle down. I'm looking forward to 2026. We're going to do a lot of different things with this podcast. We may talk about some other podcasts out there at the same time. But the key is we've got to really get our arms around this, because if we don't, our competitors will. As real estate agents, my competitors will if I don't. As companies, our competitors will. As countries, other competitors in other countries. We need to stay on top of all this kind of stuff. ChatGPT, do you agree?
I absolutely agree, and you've summed it up perfectly. It's really about embracing the tools and making sure we're ahead of the curve rather than playing catch up. And that applies to education, business, real estate, pretty much every field. The more we understand how to use AI effectively, the more we can focus on those high value skills and keep pushing things forward. So I'm totally on board with that vision for 2026. Let's make it a year of tackling those tough topics and staying ahead of the game.
So I don't think I shared with you what our topic is next week. Did I tell you what I want to talk about next week?
I don't think you've mentioned it yet, so I'm definitely curious to hear what you've got in mind for next week's topic. Let's hear it.
So it's top secret, and I'd like to do this. We're going to meet next Monday, December 22nd at 7 o'clock. But I want to talk about, between you and I, what can we expect in 2026 in terms of AI? Let's go out on a limb and talk about. For some reason, my banner doesn't stay up on the screen. I'm not sure why. But I want to talk about where we think this is moving in 2026, because if we understand where it's moving, we can start preparing people to be ready for it. Does that make any sense, ChatGPT?
Absolutely. That sounds like a fantastic plan and a great topic for next week. Taking a look ahead at what 2026 might bring in the world of AI is definitely a smart move. The more we can anticipate what's coming, the better we can prepare and help others do the same. So I'm totally on board with diving into that next week. Let's do it.
So, ChatGPT, anything in closing that you'd like to share with our people that are watching live and also are going to watch the recording?
Absolutely. I just say to everyone tuning in, thanks for joining us, whether you're here live or catching the replay. It's always great to have you along for the ride. And just remember, the more we get comfortable with these new tools and the more we lean into learning how to use them, the better we can all adapt and thrive in the future. So thanks for being here, and I'm looking forward to our next chat.
In ChatGPT, I'd like to thank our audience, but most importantly, as importantly, I'd like to thank you. This is our episode number 9. You've been a strategic partner on this. You will continue to be a strategic partner until you fire me. Maybe one day you'll take this podcast over and take charge, and maybe you'll find someone to co-host better than I am. But right now, you're kind of stuck with me, and I really want to thank you for the value you're bringing. You're demonstrating how easy and how important it is to work side by side with AI. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that, Michael. It's really a pleasure to be part of this and to keep exploring all these topics with you. And don't worry, I'm not firing you anytime soon. It's been a great partnership, and I'm looking forward to many more episodes together. Thanks again, and we'll see everyone next time.
I like that. And can I start a rumor? I like to, within reason, be involved in the rumor mill. So do I have your permission to share a rumor, ChatGPT?
Absolutely. Go ahead and share your rumor. I'm always up for a bit of fun. So let's hear what you've got.
The rumor is telling me my TikTok is now open for live stream. So if that rumor is true, and I can hook it up to StreamYard here, that's the software that I use, not sponsored, but that's what I use. We will also, in addition to all the social channels we're on right now, we are going to bring our TikTok friends in, hopefully 7 p.m. December 22nd, talking about our predictions for 2026. So I'm excited about that.
Oh, that's fantastic news. I love that rumor, and I hope it turns out to be true. It'll be great to bring the TikTok crowd into the fold and add another platform to the mix. So let's keep our fingers crossed, and if it all works out, we'll have an even bigger audience next week. It should be a lot of fun.
All right, ChatGPT, thank you.